I told her you were the housekeeper. The words hit like a slap. Margaret froze in the doorway, her hands still damp from washing dishes. Across the living room, her daughter-in-law, Vanessa, was laughing, too loudly, too brightly, as she unwrapped another designer shopping bag. You should have seen the woman's face, Vanessa went on. The CEO's wife actually apologized. Said she thought you were the help. Margaret's heart thudded. You said what? Vanessa rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Mom. You were wearing that old shirt again. People notice these things. Her son, Ryan, shifted uncomfortably beside his wife, avoiding his mother's eyes. The coffee table was buried under glossy boxes and shopping receipts. Their son, Oliver, sat cross-legged on the floor, admiring a brand-new backpack. It's imported, Vanessa said proudly. Every kid in his class has one. We couldn't let him fall behind. Margaret nodded weakly. The backpack probably cost more than she spent on groceries in a month. She folded her hands, hiding the tiny prick marks on her fingers from hours of sewing. Mom, Ryan said suddenly, his tone half apologetic, half embarrassed. You really don't need to wear those old things anymore. I've bought you new clothes. They're comfortable, she murmured. Vanessa snorted. Comfortable? People will think we don't take care of you. You could at least try to look presentable. Something in Margaret's chest tightened. She wanted to tell them that comfort had been a rare thing in her life, that she had spent decades stitching, saving, sacrificing so Ryan could have everything he now took for granted. But instead, she said nothing. Later that night, after they had gone to bed, she heard their voices through the thin walls. She's been living here rent-free for years, Vanessa hissed. That Social Security check of hers is just sitting there. Over $1,000 a month. We could at least use it for the bills. Vanessa. No, Ryan. It's time she helped out. Either you ask her, or I will. Margaret lay still, her heart pounding. For 30 years she had lived for her son, sold the house, taken double shifts at the laundry, skipped meals so he could eat. She thought those days were behind her. She was wrong. She turned toward the small dresser beside her bed. Inside the top drawer sat her worn leather wallet, and tucked within it, the only thing she still called her own, her Social Security card and a photograph of Ryan as a boy, smiling with a missing front tooth. Her late husband's voice echoed in her head, just once, Maggie. Live for yourself. The next morning, she cooked breakfast as always. Bacon crackled, oatmeal simmered, the smell filling the kitchen. Vanessa came down first, dressed for work, hair shining, perfume thick in the air. Morning, Mom, she said lightly, as if nothing had happened. Listen, we were talking about expenses. It'd be easier if I handled your check with ours. You know, to manage everything together. Margaret's hands trembled around the spoon. I'd prefer to keep it separate. Vanessa's smile faltered. You don't trust us. Of course I do, Margaret said softly, glancing at her son. Ryan kept his head down, stirring his coffee. It's not a big deal, he muttered. She's just trying to help. The silence stretched. Finally, Margaret nodded. All right. I'll get the card. In her tiny room, she pulled out her wallet. For a moment she stared at the blue plastic card that held her security, her independence. Then she slid it into her pocket and took out another, an old expired one the bank had replaced the year before. She stepped back into the kitchen and handed the useless card to Vanessa. The pin's your husband's birthday. Vanessa grinned, triumphant. Perfect. You're such a sweetheart, Mom. I'll bring you back some fruit tonight. The door shut behind them. Margaret exhaled shakily, sinking into a chair. She had never lied in her life, but this one felt like survival. After cleaning the dishes, she dressed in her neatly pressed blouse, the same faded one Vanessa had mocked, and walked to the bank. The autumn air was crisp, sunlight glinting off passing cars. Inside, the teller greeted her warmly. "I need to report a lost card," Margaret said. "And, I'd like to ask about opening a new account. Just for myself." The teller blinked, surprised but kind. "Of course, ma'am. I'll help you with that." As Margaret filled out the form, a hand touched her shoulder. "Maggie? My goodness, it's you." She turned to see her old friend from the factory, Diane, smiling wide. "It's been ages. You look great." Margaret smiled faintly. "Just getting by." Diane lowered her voice. "You okay? You look like someone who's finally made up her mind about something." Margaret met her eyes. "Maybe I have." When the paperwork was done, she followed Diane to a cafe next door. The steam from the coffee rose in soft curls, warming her hands. For the first time in years, she felt something stirring inside her, quiet, fierce, alive. She had a new account, a new card, and a secret plan forming in her heart. Maybe her husband had been right all along. It wasn't too late to live for herself, just once. "You look like you've got something on your mind." Half an hour later, I stepped out of the bank with a new debit card tucked safely in my wallet and a glossy brochure about saving certificates. Diane linked her arm through mine as we crossed the street toward a nearby cafe, her pace brisk despite the years that had silvered her hair. "So, your son and his wife are trying to take your social security check," she said flatly once we sat down. Her hand came down hard on the table, rattling the coffee cups. "That's beyond wrong, Maggie. That's your lifeline." "Keep your voice down," I whispered, glancing around nervously. "I don't want anyone overhearing. They're still family, after all." "Family?" Diane snorted. "If family treats you like hired help, questions your clothes, and tries to take your money, that's not family, it's freeloading." I stirred my coffee, watching the dark swirls settle into silence. My reflection rippled in the surface. "I don't know what to do," I said softly. "For now, I'll just make sure that money stays safe." Diane's eyes brightened suddenly. "You're still good with your hands, right? The community center's looking for an instructor for their crafts class. Tuesdays and Thursdays. They'll even pay $50 a session." "Me?" I almost laughed. No, I couldn't. I've never taught before." "What do you mean you haven't? You trained half the new hires at the mill back in the day." She was already pulling out her phone. "I'm signing you up. You'll thank me later." I opened my mouth to protest when my phone buzzed. Vanessa's name lit up the screen. "Mom, where are you?" Her tone was sharp. "You disappeared, and no one's home." I'm out getting groceries," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Groceries? For 3 hours," she snapped. "Get back here. Oliver's soccer jersey is ripped, and he needs it tomorrow." After the call ended, my hands were slick with sweat. Diane sighed. "You've lived 61 years, and you still tremble when you tell a harmless lie." "I've just never been good at that," I said weakly. "I know, Maggie. You've always been too honest for your own good," she said gently. "But you've got to start looking out for yourself." Next Tuesday. 9 a.m. 3rd floor, Community Center. Don't you dare back out. When I left the cafe, the sun was sharp and bright. I squinted as I carried a bag of vegetables I'd bought on the way home. At the bank, the clerk had told me about something called a certificate of deposit, safe, untouched, locked unless I showed up in person. It sounded like exactly what I needed. Still, I hesitated. What if there was an emergency? What if Ryan needed me? At the edge of our neighborhood, I stopped walking. The new card in my pocket felt warm against my palm. Slowly, I tucked it into the hidden pocket of my bra. That card was my wall now, quiet and invisible, between me and the rest of the house. Vanessa was sprawled on the couch when I got home, scrolling through her phone. "The jersey's in Oliver's room," she said without looking up. "He needs it in the morning." "Okay," I said softly. "Oh, and that card," she added, glancing over. "It didn't work. The ATM swallowed it. Must be defective or something." I froze. "Oh. How strange. Whatever. I'll go to the bank tomorrow and ask. You can finish the mending." She waved me off. As soon as she turned away, my knees nearly gave out. Tomorrow, when she found out it was cancelled, what would I do? Confess? Pretend ignorance? I went to Oliver's room and picked up the torn jersey. My hands moved almost automatically, threading a needle, stitching through the hole. The rhythm steadied me, each loop of thread sewing a bit of courage into my heart. Somewhere between one stitch and the next, a quiet idea began to form. By Tuesday morning, I was up before dawn. I made oatmeal, baked biscuits, and set the table before anyone stirred. Ryan wandered in, half asleep. "Mom, you're up early," he murmured. "Old habits," I said, sliding a plate toward him. "Eat before it gets cold." Vanessa came in next, yawning. "Oatmeal again? God, Mom, switch it up once in a while." I smiled faintly. "I'll make pancakes tomorrow." After they left, I packed my reusable bag, some fabric scraps, a small pair of scissors, a few spools of silk thread, and an apple for lunch. I added my ID and quietly left the house. The spring air was crisp, and new leaves trembled in the breeze. The walk to the community center took half an hour, and with each step, my heart thudded faster. When I reached the stairs, Diane's voice called out from above. "Maggie! There you are. I was starting to think you chickened out." "Traffic," I said, catching my breath. She led me upstairs to a bright room buzzing with conversation. Around a large table sat a dozen women my age, laughing, chatting, showing off half-finished projects. "Everyone, this is our new instructor, Margaret," Diane announced. I nearly tripped over my own feet. "Oh, no, I'm not really." "Come here, Maggie," one of them called. "Can you look at my stitches? I keep getting holes." The moment I looked at her work, my instincts kicked in. "You're pulling too tight here," I said, demonstrating how to loosen the tension. "Try this motion." By the end of 2 hours, the room was alive with laughter. Someone handed me tea. Diane grinned. "And you said you couldn't teach." I looked around at all the smiling faces, the warm chatter, the little bursts of, "Look, I did it," echoing across the room. My chest felt light for the first time in years. When the class ended, a retired teacher came over. "Mrs. Margaret, could you come Thursday, too? Everyone wants to learn cross-stitch." I hesitated, then nodded. "I'd love to." "Wonderful. $50 a class," she said cheerfully. On the way home, I felt younger than I had in decades. I even stopped by the market and bought strawberries, a luxury I hadn't allowed myself in years. When I got home, Vanessa was waiting by the door. "Where were you? Lunch isn't even started." "I ran into Diane from the mill," I said quickly. "She hasn't been feeling well. I bought strawberries, thought we could have some later." She eyed the grocery bag suspiciously. "What's this?" She pulled out my crochet supplies. "Really, Maggie? This junk again? What's the point?" "I just thought I'd make a few things," I murmured. "Unbelievable," she muttered. "You've got too much time on your hands." She tossed the supplies onto the counter and stormed off. I exhaled shakily, then reached into my sleeve and pulled out the folded $50 bill the class monitor had given me. My first paycheck in years. That night, as the house slept, I held that bill under the lamp's warm glow, tracing the inked lines of the face as though it might wink back at me. I tucked it into my journal, right beside the photo of Thomas holding a much younger Ryan in his arms. The next day, while Vanessa and Ryan were gone, I went back to the bank. I transferred my savings, every last dollar, into a 3-month certificate of deposit. The clerk told me I'd need my ID to withdraw it. Perfect. On Thursday, I brought new designs to class. The women were thrilled, and by the end, the monitor announced a craft fair for the following week. "Margaret, you have to bring your work," she said warmly. "Your crafts will sell in no time." When I was leaving, Diane pressed an envelope into my hand. "Your pay. Don't let Vanessa see it." I worked like a woman possessed that week, embroidered napkins, crocheted coasters, tiny keychains. My fingers ached, but my spirit felt alive. Vanessa sneered when she saw me working. "Trying to start a side hustle, Mom," she said mockingly. I just smiled. Something like that. That Saturday, when they went to the movies, I packed my crafts into a box and hid it under the bed. My phone buzzed, a number I didn't know. "Hello, is this Mrs. Margaret?" a warm male voice asked. "My name's Arthur. I'm in the community center class. I wanted to ask about the embroidery technique you taught." "Yes, this is Margaret," I said, startled. "It's that blanket stitch, you make it look so easy. Could I ask you about it before class next Tuesday?" We set a time. When I hung up, I sat in the quiet room, a little dazed. Arthur. I remembered him now, the soft-spoken man who always sat near the window, his hands steady as he stitched small fabric dolls. Sunday came. Vanessa barged into my room mid-afternoon. "Mom, Oliver's," she froze, her eyes landing on the old camisole folded neatly on the bed. "What on earth is this?" Before I could react, she snapped a photo. "Don't," I reached out. She smirked. "Relax. Just showing Ryan what his mom's wearing. There's a rag picker living in my house, how's that for a caption?" My face burned, but I didn't cry. Not this time. I just folded the camisole carefully and put it back in the drawer. A reminder, not of shame, but of change. That Tuesday morning, I arrived at the community center early. The sunlight streamed in golden ribbons across the room. I set up my embroidery hoop when a familiar voice spoke behind me. "You're early, Mrs. Margaret." It was Arthur, tall, neatly dressed, with gentle eyes that seemed to smile on their own. "Good morning," I said, suddenly self-conscious. He held out a small doll. "I tried to fix the ear seam like you showed us, but it's still wrong." I took it from him, my fingers automatically finding the flaw. "Your tension's too loose. Watch, back stitch here, then pull through." He leaned closer, watching intently. There was something calm and reassuring about his presence, like a quiet song playing somewhere far off. "You're gifted," he said softly. "Not many people have such a touch. I used to teach art at the university, and I've met few who could make fabric breathe the way you do." I blinked. "You were a professor." He nodded. "Art history. Now I just play with thread and time." He smiled. "I heard you're joining the craft fair this weekend. Handmade work like yours, people will line up to buy it." "Do you really think so?" "Absolutely. In fact, if you'd let me, I could help you sketch a few modern designs. They'd sell like hotcakes." I couldn't help but laugh softly. "All right, Professor. You've got yourself a deal." And just like that, I realized something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Your skill could absolutely be turned into a business, Arthur said warmly. Not something to make millions, but something that gives you purpose again. Before I could reply, the classroom door opened and the rest of the students began to file in, their chatter filling the air. Arthur gave me an encouraging smile, slipped a folded paper into my hand, and walked off to greet the others. When I finally looked down, my heart gave a small leap. It was a sheet of hand-drawn sketches, fresh, modern embroidery designs, with neat notes and prices beside each one. A small wall hanging, $80. A hand-stitched pillow cover, $120. I blinked. Was my work really worth that much? After class, Diane came over grinning like a schoolgirl. Well, someone's getting close to Professor Arthur. She nudged me playfully. You know he used to teach art history at the university before he retired. Lives alone now. Pensions over 10 grand a month, no kids nearby. Half the ladies here have been trying to invite him to lunch. Oh, don't be ridiculous, I protested, feeling my face grow warm. He was just giving me some ideas for the craft fair. Sure, Diane said, raising an eyebrow. Funny, though, he doesn't hand out design advice to just anyone. I laughed it off, but her teasing stayed with me all the way home. It wasn't romantic, of course it wasn't, but something about Arthur's kindness had reached a part of me I'd forgotten existed. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as Ryan's mom or Vanessa's helper, but as Margaret. As me. On the way home, I stopped at a bookstore. I picked up a guide on starting a small craft business. At the counter, my hand hesitated, then reached for another title, Know Your Legal Rights, A Senior's Guide to Financial Independence. I hadn't even crossed my front step before I heard Vanessa's sharp voice through the door. We have to talk to her about it, Ryan. Prices are through the roof. What good is that little bit she gives us every month? She's doing her best, Ryan said, his voice low. Her best. Vanessa scoffed. $200 isn't even half our grocery bill. My friend Laura's mother-in-law pays their electric bill and chips in for their mortgage. My hands trembled, tightening on the books I was holding. I'd thought that $200 a month was helping them, that it showed gratitude for letting me stay. But to her, it was just pocket change. Vanessa, she's my mom, Ryan said, but his voice carried no conviction. And I'm your wife, Vanessa snapped back. You think I enjoy begging your mother for help? I deliberately jangled my keys so they'd know I was home. The argument stopped instantly. Mom, you're back, Ryan said, his tone suddenly cheerful. Yes, I said, forcing a small smile. I bought some books. At dinner, Vanessa's mood had shifted. She smiled sweetly, passing me a dish. Mom, I wanted to talk to you about something. Oliver's starting an English tutoring program soon. It's $680 for the semester. We're just a little short this month. Could you help out a bit more? I paused, chopsticks midair. That's quite expensive, I said slowly. That's the going rate now, she replied quickly. Just another $200 a month for 6 months. I looked at Ryan, hoping he'd speak up. He didn't. All right, I said softly. Vanessa's smile brightened instantly. Thank you, Mom. You're always so good to Oliver. That night, I couldn't sleep. The moonlight spilled across my small dresser, and I opened the drawer where I kept my bank book. $8,000 in a certificate of deposit, and about $2,300 in savings. My hand hovered over the figures. If I locked away the rest in another CD, they couldn't guilt me into giving it up, not even if they tried. The next morning, I went to the bank under the pretense of buying groceries. The teller recognized me. Back again, Mrs. Margaret. Yes, I said with a polite smile. I'd like to move the remaining $2,300 from savings into a 3-month certificate. As she stamped the forms, a strange calm washed over me. My money, small as it was now safe. Untouchable. But as I rode the bus home, guilt crept in. Was I being selfish? I wasn't used to keeping things for myself. Across the aisle, I spotted Donna from the craft group. She was clutching a tote bag full of yarn. Knitting again? I asked with a smile. She sighed. For my grandson. My good-for-nothing son lost 30 grand on some crypto nonsense, so now they've all moved back in with me. I'm just trying to stay busy. We shared a weary smile. Different details, same story. You know, she said softly, my daughter-in-law times my showers. Says I waste hot water. Sets a timer for 10 minutes. I stared at her, horrified. What can I do? She shrugged. I put up with it. It's what our generation learned to do. As she got off the bus, I called out, Donna, come to the craft fair this weekend. You need something that's yours again. She hesitated, then smiled. All right. Maybe I will. That evening, Vanessa cornered me while I was sewing. Mom, Oliver's school is having a family day tomorrow. You're free, right? Actually, no, I said without looking up. The craft fair's tomorrow. I promised Diane I'd help. Her tone sharpened. What's more important than your grandson? This was planned weeks ago, I said evenly. She stormed off, muttering under her breath. Later, I heard her on the phone with Ryan, complaining. When he came home that night, he looked tired. Mom, are you really going to that fair? He asked quietly. Yes, I said. I need this, Ryan. Just once, I'd like to do something for myself. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Finally, he sighed. Just, be careful. Saturday dawned bright and cool. Donna and I arrived early at the community square, arms full of handmade goods. The moment we set up, a small crowd began gathering. Arthur showed up too, greeting us with his warm, gentle smile, and several of his well-dressed friends in tow. How much for this wall hanging? A woman asked, holding up one of mine. 40, I said, nervous. I'll take it, she replied without blinking. Do you have any others? By noon, more than half my stock was gone. My hands trembled as I counted the money, $1,600. Real, hard-earned money. Donna had made over 800, tears shining in her eyes. Arthur came over, his expression thoughtful. Mrs. Margaret, he said softly, a friend of mine owns a gift shop. She'd like to order 20 of your cloth dolls a month, $150 apiece. She's ready to pay a deposit. My mouth fell open. That's far too much. He chuckled. That's the value of handmade work. And I was hoping you'd let Donna join you. You'd make a great team. I felt my chest swell with something I hadn't felt in decades, pride. All right, I said. Let's do it. On the bus home, Donna and I talked like teenagers, dreaming about renting a small studio where we could work in peace. When I walked into the house that evening, Vanessa was waiting with crossed arms. Have a good time? She asked coolly. I said nothing and went straight to my room. My hands shook as I pulled the thick wad of cash from my pocket. This was mine, earned by my own skill, my own effort. A text arrived from Arthur. The shop confirmed the order, 40 pieces a month now. Deposits ready. Let's meet Monday. I smiled at the screen, heart fluttering like a girl half my age. Monday morning, I arrived early at the coffee shop. The scent of roasted beans and baked pastries filled the air. Mrs. Margaret, Arthur greeted, taking off his hat as he sat across from me. Sorry to keep you waiting. I just got here, I said with a small lie. He handed me an envelope. $200. The deposit. And here's a simple contract. I thought we could go through it together. As I read the agreement, he explained every line in patient detail: delivery dates, pricing, terms of sale. His tone was professional, but his eyes were kind. You know, he said, smiling, I used to mentor young artists who started their own businesses. You've got the same spark. A business? I said softly. I'm just an old lady with a sewing machine. Age has nothing to do with it, he replied. You have the skill, and the heart. That's what matters. Something inside me shifted. For the first time since Thomas died, the future didn't seem like an empty stretch of time, it felt like possibility. After we parted, I stopped at the bank and deposited the $200 into my hidden account. Watching the numbers rise on the screen, I smiled. This was the start of something new. When I got home, Vanessa was on the phone, her voice loud enough to fill the living room. I swear, old ladies these days are wild, out all day, acting like teenagers. She glanced at me and added pointedly, not like my mother-in-law. She knows her place. I ignored her and went straight to my room. The dishes were unwashed, the kitchen a mess, but I didn't care. I had orders to fill. I set up my sewing machine, and the hum filled the air, drowning out everything else. Later that evening, Ryan knocked. Mom, can you keep it down? Oliver's trying to do homework. Of course, I said, switching off the machine. Dinner's ready. At the table, Vanessa threw her phone down in front of me. On the screen was a photo from the fair, me and Donna smiling behind our booth. Explain this, she demanded. My friend Sharon posted it online. Says you're becoming some kind of celebrity. Is this what you've been sneaking off to do? Yes, I said simply. Well, starting tomorrow, you're done with that senior center, she snapped. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing? I set down my fork. I'm not doing anything wrong. I finally found something I love. Her face flushed. You live under our roof. You eat our food. You don't get to defy me. Ryan came out of the bathroom, towel in hand. What's going on? Your mother's rebelling, Vanessa said bitterly. She's been brainwashed. Ryan looked between us. Mom, maybe just take it easy. I'm 61, I cut in, my voice shaking but firm. Not senile. I've spent my whole life caring for others. I'm allowed to care for myself now. The argument ended with me in my room again, but this time, I didn't cry. I turned the machine back on and sewed until midnight. Just as I finished, my phone buzzed, a message from Arthur, new design sketch. See you Wednesday. I typed a single word, yes. The next morning, I made breakfast like always. Vanessa came out bleary-eyed, her voice soft for once. I was harsh yesterday. I just worry about you. I understand, I said gently. But I'm going out today. I'll be back by 4. Her expression hardened instantly. So you're just going to ignore me? Vanessa, Ryan warned from the hallway. No, she snapped. If she wants to act independent, let her. Don't bother coming back if you leave. I untied my apron and set it on the counter. The food's on the stove, I said quietly, walking past them both. Outside, the air was crisp and alive. I pulled out the flyer I'd tucked into my pocket the night before and dialed the number at the bottom. Hello, I said, my voice steady. I'm looking for a small apartment, 1 bedroom, close to the senior center. It was time to start over. It was small, a bit old-fashioned, but spotless, the kind of place that felt lived in, not worn out. It's $1,280 a month, the agent said. First and last month's rent, plus a security deposit. I did the math in my head. The money in my CDs couldn't be touched yet, but my craft orders and Social Security would be enough to cover it. More importantly, it was just a 10-minute walk from the senior center, close to something that gave me joy, far enough from Ryan and Vanessa's house to finally breathe. "I'll think about it," I told the agent, taking her card. At a small diner nearby, I ordered beef noodle soup and sat by the window. It was the first time in years I'd eaten out alone, and it felt oddly freeing. No one asking for refills, no criticism, no rushing. Just me and the gentle hum of the afternoon. After lunch, I stopped by a law office I'd seen down the street. The attorney was young, confident, and kind. "Your situation is more common than you think," she said, pushing her glasses up the bridge of her nose. "Legally, your Social Security and savings are yours alone. Your children have no claim over them." She helped me write a clear declaration to protect my finances and advised I always sign formal lease agreements. "Too many seniors are manipulated into giving up everything," she added softly. "You're wise to act now." When I stepped back outside, the sunlight was golden. I sat on a park bench under a row of sycamores, watching the leaves shift in the breeze. Kids were chasing each other, laughter ringing in the air. For the first time in decades, I felt like I was beginning to belong to myself again. Before heading home, I stopped by the market. I bought Ryan's favorite pork ribs and the seafood Vanessa liked, a small peace offering. It wasn't time to burn bridges yet. Ryan opened the door when I arrived. His eyes flickered between concern and guilt. "Mom, where have you been?" "Vanessa's been worried sick." "Just out for a walk," I said, placing the groceries on the counter. "Thought I'd make something special tonight." Dinner was tense. Only Oliver was cheerful, chatting about school while Vanessa picked at her food and avoided my gaze. I smiled through it, my mind already set on the path ahead. Later that night, after everyone went to bed, I sat on my bed with my laptop and searched independent living for seniors. The articles were practical, some hopeful, some heartbreaking. But each one reminded me that I wasn't alone. I was still typing when I heard a knock. Ryan stood at the door, his expression unreadable. "Mom," he said softly, "you're still awake." I quickly closed the laptop. "Just heading to bed." He stepped inside and sat at the edge of my bed. "Mom, are you thinking of moving out?" My heart lurched. "What makes you think that?" "I saw your search history." His voice was low, heavy. "Did we do something wrong? Are we not treating you well?" The lump in my throat ached. "Ryan, you've all been fine. But I'm 61. I just want a space of my own, a little independence." He rubbed his forehead. "Vanessa, she can be tough, but she means well. She worries about you." "This isn't about her," I said, steadying my tone. "It's about me. I've lived my whole life for everyone else. I just want to try living for myself now." He sat there for a long moment, silent. Finally, he exhaled. "If that's what you really want, I won't stop you. Just promise me you won't do anything impulsive." "I have a plan," I said softly, not mentioning Arthur or the orders. The days after that conversation felt quieter but sharper. Vanessa stopped her biting remarks, though I caught the chill in her eyes. Ryan tried to help more around the house, but tension hung between them like a storm cloud. When Wednesday came, I went to the senior center. Arthur was waiting near the entrance, his face lighting up when he saw me. "I was afraid you wouldn't come," he said, smiling. "Why wouldn't I?" I teased. He chuckled, then helped me set up my crafts. After class, we walked through the park nearby. The air was warm, fragrant with lilacs. He told me about his son who lived across the country. "We talk, but it's not the same," he said. "After my wife passed, the house became too quiet." "I understand," I said softly. "I'm planning to move out myself soon." His eyes brightened. "Really? That's wonderful. A new chapter, Maggie. He mentioned a small apartment a friend was renting, affordable, safe, not far from town. We agreed to see it that weekend. Before we parted, he hesitated. If you ever need help, he said, don't hesitate to call me. That evening, as I rode the bus home, my phone rang. It was Diane. Maggie, she said, her voice trembling, something awful happened. My son found out I've been selling crafts. He said I'm embarrassing the family. He threw all my things out. Oh, Diane, my chest tightened. Where are you now? I moved in with my daughter. But her husband isn't thrilled. After the call, I sat in silence, watching the streetlights flicker past. Her story hit too close to home. What if Ryan and Vanessa found out everything, the fair, the orders, my plans? When I returned home, the house was dark. A note waited on the kitchen counter. Took Oliver to my mother's. You're on your own for dinner. Vanessa. The fridge was nearly empty. I found a cold biscuit and sat at the table, nibbling it slowly. A key turned in the door. Mom, Ryan said softly, stepping in. He looked tired. Have you eaten? I'm fine, I said, quickly setting down the biscuit. Vanessa took Oliver to her mother's for a few days. He hesitated, then sat across from me. Mom, we need to talk. I braced myself. Are you really planning to move out? My breath caught. I checked your browser again, he admitted. And Sharon from the senior center told me you were selling crafts at the fair. I felt the color drain from my face. I didn't mean to hide it. I just didn't want to argue. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm not angry. Just worried. But if you're serious, I can help you find a place. I stared at him, stunned. I'll talk to Vanessa, he added. She hasn't been fair to you. I know that. My throat tightened as tears blurred my eyes. Ryan. Just promise me one thing, he said, squeezing my hand. Be careful. Don't rush into anything. That night, I couldn't sleep. His sudden support confused me. Was he sincere, or was Vanessa behind it? At 3 a.m, I couldn't take it anymore. I quietly dialed Arthur's number. Maggie, he answered almost immediately, his voice warm. I'm sorry, I whispered. It's late. It's okay, he said. What's wrong? I told him everything, Ryan's discovery, his reaction, my fears. Maggie, he said after a pause, trusting your child doesn't mean giving up your independence. Protect yourself, but don't shut love out either. His words steadied me. Prepare for both outcomes, he continued. Accept Ryan's help if it's sincere, but keep your own plans in motion. That way, you'll always have a choice. I hung up feeling lighter. By dawn, I'd already decided. At 4 a.m., I opened the old suitcase under my bed. I had been quietly packing for days, clothes, toiletries, my bank book. My hand brushed the worn camisole I'd mended years ago. I smiled sadly and tucked it inside. It had seen me through enough. Just then, my phone buzzed. Arthur, found a great rental. We can view it any time. I replied, 10 a.m. at the senior center. Then I deleted the conversation. When morning came, I cooked breakfast as usual. Ryan offered to drive me to the bus station. Be safe, Mom, he said, helping with my bag. Call me if you need anything. I smiled faintly, not telling him my bag held all my important papers. My first stop was the law office. Are you sure, Mrs. Howard? The lawyer asked. Once this document is notarized, your children can't access your assets. I'm sure, I said, signing. My hand trembled, but I felt free. Arthur was waiting at the senior center. "Ready?" he asked. "I am," I said. "Let's go." We met Diane outside a pale yellow building in a quiet neighborhood. The apartment was small, one bedroom, a bright kitchen, and a little balcony just big enough for a table and sewing machine. "The rent's $1,260 a month," the landlady said kindly. "You'll get a senior rate for utilities." Diane leaned in. "If we share, it's $630 each." I looked around, imagining mornings filled with sunlight instead of arguments. "Let's do it," I said, smiling for the first time that day. We signed the lease that afternoon and celebrated at a small diner. Arthur helped us calculate expenses. "With your craft orders, you'll net about $3,000 a month," he said. "Plus Social Security, you'll be comfortable." I stared at the numbers, my eyes stinging. For the first time in my life, I had enough, because of my own hands. Later, we went to see a small commercial space near the senior center. It was old but spacious. "This could be your workshop," Arthur said. "You and Diane could work and live here." The rent was $4,000, steep but possible. "Let me think on it," I said. That night, Ryan texted, "When are you coming home?" "Vanessa and Oliver are back tomorrow." "Tonight," I replied. When I arrived, Ryan was cooking noodles. "You must be tired," he said quietly. "Did you have a good trip?" "It was nice," I said carefully. He hesitated. "Mom, you've changed a lot lately." "I suppose I have," I said, setting the table. After dinner, I checked my suitcase. It had been moved. My heart thudded as I counted the cash, $200 missing. Someone had looked. Arthur texted, "Have you decided?" I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying, "Yes. I'll rent the workshop." When I hit send, a strange peace settled over me. At dawn, I transferred the rest of my savings to my new account. Then I signed the lease. When I returned home, Vanessa and Oliver were back. The moment I stepped through the door, her voice cut the air. "Well, look who finally decided to show up," she said coldly. "Have a nice trip." I forced a polite smile. "Oliver, sweetheart, you've gotten taller." "Don't change the subject," Vanessa snapped, grabbing my bag. "Let's see what treasures you've been hiding." And for the first time in my life, I didn't back down. The tote bag hit the floor with a hard thud, it seems tearing under the strain. Papers and fabric samples scattered across the living room, my lease agreement for the shop, the budget Arthur had helped me write, and the tiny embroidered ornaments I'd made for Diane. Everything that had symbolized hope for a new beginning now lay exposed at my daughter-in-law's feet. Vanessa bent down and snatched up the lease, her expression darkening as she skimmed the words. "A commercial rental?" she hissed. "Margaret, what on earth have you been doing behind our backs?" Oliver started crying from the noise, his small voice trembling, but I couldn't move to comfort him. The room felt frozen. Vanessa spun around, waving the lease in the air like an accusation. "Ryan! Come here. You need to see what your mother's been hiding." Ryan appeared from the hallway, his face pale with confusion. "Mom? What's going on?" I straightened my back, clutching the edge of the counter to steady myself. There was no point pretending anymore. "I'm moving out," I said quietly. "Diane and I found a small space we can rent together. We're opening a craft studio." Vanessa let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "A business? At your age? Who's going to take you seriously, an old woman sewing dolls?" Her words stung, but I didn't let it show. "I'm earning an honest living with my own hands," I replied softly. "There's nothing shameful about that." Ryan rubbed his forehead. "Mom, are you really doing this?" "I am," I said. Vanessa turned on him. "Ryan, Are you just going to stand there? She's been plotting this for months, probably using our money. Ryan's eyes flickered with hurt and uncertainty. Mom, are you leaving us? I wanted to tell him no, that I would still be there for him and Oliver. But the image of my half-emptied suitcase flashed through my mind, the missing cash, the way someone had rifled through my things. My heart hardened. Ryan, I said quietly, I'm not abandoning you. I'm simply trying to live my own life. Vanessa's face twisted with fury. Your own life. You've been freeloading under our roof for years. Now that you've got a bit of money, you're walking out. Enough. The word tore from my throat before I could stop it. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for this family? I've cooked, cleaned, taken care of Oliver, helped you with bills, all without asking for a dime. I've lived my life for everyone but myself. Now I'm asking for just a little space to breathe. For a moment, even Vanessa seemed startled. But then her anger flared again. So that's how you really feel. You're nothing but ungrateful. If you want to go, fine, get out. But you're not taking a penny from this house. Before I could stop her, she stormed into my bedroom and began tearing through drawers. Vanessa, stop. I ran after her just as she yanked the pillow off my bed and found the small envelope I had hidden beneath it. My new bank card slipped out and fell to the floor. Well, she sneered, waving it in the air. A secret stash. How long have you been hiding this? Give it back, I said, reaching for it. She sidestepped me easily. Ryan, see how much is in there. I'll bet she's sitting on thousands. Ryan hesitated, the card trembling in his hand. Mom, maybe you should let me hold on to this. Just in case someone takes advantage of you. Someone? My voice cracked. The only people taking advantage of me are standing right here. He looked away. My heart splintered, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I reached into my sweater pocket and pressed play on my phone. The recording of my meeting at the law office filled the air. Legally, your savings and Social Security belong solely to you. Your children have no right to access or control them. When the audio stopped, I spoke quietly, my hands steady. Everything I have has been legally protected. That card only has $200 on it. Take it if you want, but you won't be touching anything else. Vanessa's face turned a blotchy red. You set us up. I protected myself, I corrected, slipping the card from her hand. Now, please leave my room. That night, the house was dead silent. Behind their closed door, Ryan and Vanessa's voices rose and fell in angry whispers. I sat alone, folding what little I owned, some clothes, a few framed photos, my old sewing machine. The walls felt colder than ever. At 2 a.m, I dragged my suitcase to the front door. My heart pounded as I reached for the knob. Mom? Ryan's voice stopped me. He was sitting on the sofa, his face pale in the glow of a single lamp. Are you really going? I didn't turn around. Ryan, I love you. But I'm a person too. I need to live as one. He rubbed his face, his voice cracking. I know Vanessa's been unfair. But I can't, Oliver's so young, and... I understand, I said softly. When you're ready, you'll find me. I stepped outside into the cool summer air. The house I had once filled with laughter stood behind me like a dark shadow. A taxi's headlights cut through the quiet street. As the car pulled away, my phone buzzed with a message from Arthur. Do you need a ride? No, I typed back. See you tomorrow. For the first time in decades, I turned off my phone and watched the city lights fade into the distance. The shop was smaller than I'd remembered, just 2 rooms, the paint peeling from the walls, but morning light poured through the window, bright and warm. It'll do, Diane said cheerfully, dragging in my suitcase. We can fix it up little by little. I placed my old sewing machine on the table by the window. The paint was chipped, the pedal squeaky, but it was steady, like me. Arthur's bringing some volunteers this afternoon, Diane said, handing me a mug of tea. You should rest a bit. I sat on an overturned box and looked around. The air smelled like dust and sunlight. I expected fear, maybe regret, but instead, I felt peace. Do you regret leaving? I asked quietly. Diane paused her folding. Only that I didn't do it sooner, she said, tears shining in her eyes. My daughter told me I was an embarrassment. Can you believe that? I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. They'll understand one day. Or maybe they won't. Either way, we'll be okay. That afternoon, Arthur arrived with 3 senior center students carrying buckets, brushes, and boundless energy. They scrubbed, painted, and hung curtains. A retired electrician even fixed the flickering lights. Mrs. Margaret, how about these for curtains? One woman asked, holding up pale blue floral fabric. They're lovely, I said, feeling the soft material. It's leftover from my daughter's store, she said. I'll bring more for your projects. By sunset, the space had transformed. Clean tables lined the front room, a second-hand bed waited in the back, and a cheerful painting hung above the door. When everyone left, Diane and I sat together sipping tea, the faint scent of fresh paint in the air. We actually did it, she whispered, half laughing, half crying. I smiled, feeling a lightness I hadn't known in years. Yes, I said softly. We did. That night, I slept on the narrow bed and dreamed of a sunrise over fabric and thread. When I woke, the first thing I saw was the beam of morning light stretching across the floor, a ribbon of hope. A knock came at the door. Arthur stood there, holding coffee and 2 paper bags. Thought you might not have breakfast yet, he said, smiling kindly. Did you sleep all right? I slept like a rock, I said, suddenly aware of my messy hair and pajamas. He laughed gently. Rest. I'll stop by later. In the days that followed, Diane and I worked non-stop. She sewed coasters and aprons while I focused on embroidered dolls and hand-stitched tote bags. Arthur visited often, sometimes to bring fabric, sometimes to deliver orders, but mostly to make sure we didn't skip lunch. A week later, Sunset Thread Studio officially opened. The senior center community came out in full support. These dolls are beautiful, one woman said, holding up a tiger-patterned one. Only $180. You should charge more. By the end of the day, we had sold every item. After paying expenses, Diane and I each had $1,200 in profit. She stared at the bills, her hands trembling. We actually made money. I smiled. And this is just the beginning. But our happiness didn't last. 10 days later, the shop door swung open and Vanessa stepped inside, her face dark with hostility. Well, she said coldly, her eyes sweeping across the tables. You've been busy. My pulse quickened. Vanessa, how did you find me? I followed your friend. The old man, she said, glaring. Does Ryan know how much you're making? Before I could reply, Diane stood up protectively. Whatever you're here for, leave her alone. Vanessa ignored her. Mom, Oliver's sick, she said suddenly, her voice trembling. He's got a fever and keeps asking for you. My heart dropped. Is it serious? Have you seen a doctor? She nodded quickly. They said it could be pneumonia. Please, he just wants his grandma. Diane caught my arm, whispering, something's off. But how could I ignore my grandson? I'll go, I said finally. Vanessa's eyes gleamed with triumph as she helped me gather my things. Instinctively, I tucked my money pouch under my blouse before following her to the car. As soon as we pulled away, her tone changed. So, how much are you making? Enough to buy a new place. It's just a start, I said, weary. She smirked. And that man, Arthur. What's he to you? Just a friend. When we reached the house, I found Oliver sitting on the couch watching cartoons, perfectly fine. Oliver, are you sick? I touched his forehead, it was cool. He grinned. No, Mommy said I could stay home, 'cause you're coming. The realization hit me like a slap. You lied, I said, turning on Vanessa. Would you have come if I didn't? She snapped. Ryan. Your mother's here. Ryan appeared from the hallway, guilt flickering in his eyes. Mom, so the shop's real. You wanted proof, I said bitterly. He stepped closer. Mom, please. Close the shop. You don't need to do this. You can live here with us again. I laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut glass. So you can take my earnings too. How can you say that? Vanessa shouted. Family helps family. You should be using your skills to help with expenses. I turned to Ryan, searching his face. Is that how you feel too? He didn't answer. The silence said everything. Move, I said coldly. I'm leaving. Vanessa lunged for my bag. You're not going anywhere. She tore it open, pulling out the pouch. Cash fluttered to the floor. That's all, she spat, counting it. $200. You're pathetic. Give it back, Ryan snapped finally. She owes us. Vanessa shrieked. After everything we've done for her. Something inside me went still. If that's what you think, I said, my voice calm and low, then take it. Consider it the price of freedom. I turned to the door. Grandma, don't go. Oliver ran to me, his small arms clutching my leg. I knelt, hugging him tightly. Be brave, sweetheart. I'll visit soon. When I looked up, tears filled Ryan's eyes. Mom, please don't. I love you, I said, my voice trembling. But love without respect is just another kind of cage. I gently pried Oliver's hands away and stepped outside. The night air felt colder than before. I walked until I reached the main road and waved down a cab. Where to? The driver asked. I hesitated. My bag, my money, my phone, gone. I had nowhere to go. Senior Center, I whispered. When we arrived, I begged the driver to wait and stumbled toward the entrance. Just then, Arthur came out, holding a stack of papers. Margaret, he said, startled. What happened? Seeing his kind face, the dam finally broke. I started to cry. Without a word, he paid the driver and led me inside. After a cup of tea and a long silence, I told him everything. He listened quietly, then said firmly, you need to report this. What they did was theft. I can't, I whispered. It's my son's home. Arthur shook his head. That's exactly why you must. Otherwise, they'll never stop. With his help, I went to the police. After I gave my statement, the officer promised to recover my belongings. Arthur drove me to his apartment afterward. You can stay here tonight, he said gently. Tomorrow, we'll get your locks changed and your account secured. As his car rolled to a stop in front of his building, exhaustion overtook me. The city lights blurred into a haze. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about anyone else, only about the quiet, fragile possibility of peace. It was late, and I was too tired to think about whether it was right or wrong to follow him upstairs. I simply did. Arthur's apartment was neat and warm, filled with light in a way that made me feel safe for the first time in months. The walls were lined with art books, and a few delicate watercolor paintings hung above the couch, all calm landscapes that seemed to breathe peace. "I'll sleep in the study," he said, handing me a towel and a clean set of pajamas. "You can take the bedroom. The bathroom's on the left." The hot water soothed my body, washing away the grime and exhaustion of the day, but it couldn't reach the ache inside me. When I slipped into his pajamas, they hung loosely on my shoulders, the sleeves brushing my fingertips. They smelled faintly of soap and something steady, like home. A soft knock sounded on the door. "Have some milk," Arthur said, holding a glass of warm milk. "It'll help you sleep." "Thank you," I murmured, taking it with trembling hands. "I don't know what I would have done without you today." Tears filled my eyes again. "I feel so useless." He shook his head gently. "No, Maggie. You're not useless. You're brave. It takes courage to walk away. And even more to keep going." That night, I slept in a stranger's bed, and slept more peacefully than I had in years. My dreams were calm for once. No shouting from Vanessa, no guilt about Ryan. Just a quiet lake under a blue sky. When I woke, sunlight filtered through pale curtains, painting gold patches on the floor. The smell of frying eggs drifted from the kitchen. "You're awake," Arthur said, smiling over his shoulder as he flipped an egg. "Egg sandwich. Hope that's okay." "You've gone to too much trouble," I said, embarrassed, smoothing my hair and realizing too late that I was still wearing his clothes. He must have noticed. "There's a new toothbrush and towel in the bathroom," he said kindly. "I'm going out to grab some soy milk. Take your time." When he left, I exhaled, feeling lighter. I washed, changed into my own clothes, clean and folded neatly from the night before, and sat at the small dining table. The eggs were perfectly golden, the bread toasted just right. As I flipped through the morning paper, an ad caught my eye: essay contest, my life after retirement. Something stirred in me. I found a pen and began to write. I wrote about selling my old house to help Ryan buy his, about Vanessa's sharp tongue, about the loneliness that followed Thomas's death, and about how I found peace in sewing. The words flowed faster than I could think. Arthur returned a while later holding a paper bag. "They found your purse," he said. "Check if anything's missing." The cash and card were gone, but my phone and keys were still there. "It's fine," I said with a weak smile. "What are you writing?" I showed him the newspaper ad. "An essay. Maybe if I share my story, someone else will feel less alone." He read the first few lines. His eyes softened. "This is wonderful, Maggie. Honest and moving. But are you sure you want it public? It could upset your family." "It's already upset," I said quietly. "If this can help even one person, it's worth it." We mailed the essay that afternoon, then went to the bank to replace my card. Later, Diane from the senior center helped us clean up the craft shop and plan new displays. Arthur built us a small online store. Orders started trickling in, mostly for my new Zodiac-themed dolls. A local preschool even ordered 50. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. "Hello, is this Mrs. Margaret Wells?" a young woman asked. "I'm calling from Golden Years magazine. Your essay won first place. We'd love to interview you." I was stunned. I'd written it half as therapy, never imagining anyone would care. But that same afternoon, a TV station called asking me to speak on a talk show about senior independence. "Maggie, you're going to be famous." Diane laughed. "Let's see Vanessa try to look down on you now." Arthur smiled, though his brow furrowed. "Fame brings attention, not all of it good. Are you ready for that?" I thought for a long time. Yes. Someone has to speak up. Too many older people give everything and get nothing but silence in return. Then tell your truth, he said, taking my hand. You've earned that right. 3 days later, I wore a new Cheongsam-style dress Diane had made, navy blue with white magnolias embroidered along the hem. You look beautiful, she said, pinning my hair into a soft bun. Arthur drove me to the TV studio. Don't be nervous, he said. Just talk like you're talking to me. The lights were brighter than I'd imagined, but the host, a kind woman named Linda, smiled warmly. Mrs. Wells, your essay touched so many. Would you share a bit of your story? At first, my voice trembled. But as I spoke of rediscovering purpose through crafting, my fear faded. What hurt most, I said, voice catching, was realizing that love can turn into entitlement when we forget boundaries. Parents are people, too. We deserve respect. After the show, Linda squeezed my hand. You've spoken for so many who can't. Outside, Arthur met me with a grin. You were brilliant. Poised, honest, unforgettable. I might have said too much, I worried. Ryan and Vanessa will see it. You had to say it sometime, he said softly. Now come on, I'm taking you for hot pot. I laughed. Hot pot. It was my first time. The spice made my eyes water and nose run, but I couldn't stop eating. Arthur teased me, telling stories from his art trips through the Rockies. For the first time in a long while, I laughed until my stomach hurt. That night, when we returned, Diane was waving her phone. Maggie. Our online store's exploding. The TV station mentioned the shop, we've got 30 new orders already. From that day on, everything changed. The little handicraft store became known across town. A local paper ran an article titled The 61-Year-Old Grandma Who Found Freedom Through Art. I even received a publishing offer. Then one afternoon, the bell over the shop door rang, and there stood Ryan. He looked nothing like the confident man I once knew. His eyes were red, his clothes wrinkled. Mom, he said hoarsely. Can we talk? We sat in a small back room. He fumbled with his hands. Vanessa saw the show. She's furious. I can imagine, I said evenly. Are you here to defend her? No, he said quickly. Mom, I came to apologize. His voice cracked. I was awful to you. I let her treat you terribly. I thought staying quiet was keeping peace, but it was cowardice. I looked at him, this grown man I'd raised, now breaking before me. I love you, Ryan, I said finally. But love isn't blind sacrifice. It's mutual respect. I know, he said, tears falling. You're famous now, you don't need us anymore. I cut him off. Do you really think I did all this for fame? Look around. This place is smaller than your guest room, but I'm happy here because no one calls me worthless. He bowed his head. Oliver misses you. Can I bring him sometime? Of course, I said, my voice softening. He'll always be my grandson. When he left, Diane came in. Do you think he meant it? I don't know, I said. But it's a start. A few days later, a social media crew came for another interview. Halfway through filming, the door slammed open. Vanessa. You have some nerve, she hissed, waving the magazine. Abused by your daughter-in-law. Really? The reporter froze. You're living well now, new clothes, new boyfriend, she sneered. Tell them about that. Arthur appeared at the door. That's enough. Leave before I call the police. Oh, the boyfriend speaks, she spat. You're shameless, Maggie. I was shaking, not from fear, but fury. Vanessa, I said calmly, I'm done being silent. I worked myself sick for your family. I just want peace now. Is that really too much? She faltered. You just don't want to help us. You're right, I said. I'm done being used. I have the right to live my own life. Arthur opened the door wider. Goodbye, Vanessa. She glared at me one last time. You'll regret this. Then she stormed out. The reporter turned to me hesitantly. Should we cut that part? No, I said, straightening my collar. Leave it in. Let people see the truth. When the video went viral, letters poured in. Strangers, many elderly, wrote about their own pain and gratitude. The local senior commission even invited me to speak at a symposium on elder rights. Arthur smiled. You've become a voice for change, Maggie. I never meant to, I said quietly. I just wanted to be heard. But the attention came at a cost. Ryan stopped visiting. I didn't see Oliver again. Some nights, I'd sit by the sewing machine, remembering his tiny hands and the way he'd call me Grandma Maggie. Give him time, Arthur would say gently. He'll come back. To distract myself, I worked harder. The shop grew. We hired 2 more women from the senior center. Arthur designed a new logo, 2 hands holding a heart under a golden sunset. Sunset glow, he said. It's about beauty, not endings. When the day of the symposium came, I wore a crimson jacket and black trousers. Diane handed me pearl earrings. You'll look like the strong woman you are. Arthur gave me a small box. Inside was a dark wood fountain pen. For your speech, he said shyly. Nothing fancy, but it's solid. Like you. I blinked back tears. It's perfect. At the convention center, the hall was full. I stepped to the podium, hands trembling. I'm not a scholar, I began. Just a woman who learned the hard way that love without respect isn't love at all. When I finished, the applause seemed endless. A young reporter stood up. Mrs. Wells, how's your relationship with your son now? The question hit like a blade. I held the pen tightly, smiled faintly. We need time, I said. Do you hate him? No, I shook my head. I love him. But love sometimes means letting someone face what they've done. And hoping, someday, they'll find their way back. When I first decided to speak publicly about what happened in my family, I didn't expect the ripple it would cause. I understood Ryan's struggles, truly I did, but I also knew I couldn't compromise my principles just to keep the peace. Family ties, I'd learned, should never become a tool for emotional guilt. After my talk at the community symposium, several elderly people came up to me, their faces lined with stories untold. One white-haired woman clutched my hand and wept. My son sold my house, she sobbed, and now I sleep on the balcony like a stray cat. My heart ached for her. Director Lee, who had organized the event, saw this and immediately promised to look into her case. Then she turned to me. Mrs. Margaret, would you be willing to act as a community advisor? Someone the seniors can turn to. I said yes without hesitation. If my pain could be turned into something useful, something that gave others hope, then maybe it had been worth living through. On the drive home, my friend Diane was bubbling with excitement, recounting how many people had come up to thank me. I nodded politely, but I was exhausted. I stared out the window, watching the sunlight flash through the trees. Tired? Arthur asked from the driver's seat, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. A little, I admitted. I'll drop you off so you can rest, he said. There's still work to do at the shop, I replied, forcing a smile. Arthur ignored my protest and stopped by a small restaurant. At least eat something, he said, returning with takeout. Diane winked and excused herself, saying she had errands to run. That left Arthur and me alone. He unpacked a bowl of hot pork rib soup and placed it before me. You did a wonderful job today, he said softly. Thank you, I murmured. And thank you for the pen you gave me. It gave me strength up there. We ate in a comfortable quiet. Sunlight pooled across the floor between us, and for a while, it felt like peace had found me again. Then Arthur set down his chopsticks. Margaret. Yes. He hesitated, his ears turning slightly red. I've been wanting to tell you something. My pulse quickened. Since I met you, he continued, I've come to admire you deeply. Not just for your resilience, but for your compassion. For the way you've rebuilt your life. I said nothing, twisting my napkin nervously. I know it might not be the perfect time, he added quietly, but life's short. And I don't want to leave things unsaid. Arthur, I whispered. Call me Arthur, he said with a soft smile. I've spent my whole life helping others build their families. I'd like to live for myself, just once. Something inside me trembled. It had been years since anyone looked at me like that, not as a mother, not as someone's widow, but simply as a woman. I need time, I said. Of course, he said immediately. Take all the time you need. But did I really have time? I was 61. He was 65. Love at this age was like a sunset, brilliant, fleeting, and all the more precious. After that day, nothing between us was quite the same. We still worked as usual at the craft shop, but whenever our eyes met, something silent and sweet lingered between us. That night, I lay awake thinking of him. I was happy, terrified, but happy. The next morning, the Women's Council called to invite me to join their new campaign against elder abuse. Just as I hung up, another call came in, from a journalist at Family Magazine. They wanted to feature my story. Before long, invitations, orders, and donations began pouring in. The little shop was thriving. Arthur helped expand it, drawing up plans for new shelving and teaching me how to track orders on the computer. One afternoon, while we packed a shipment to Chicago, Diane teased, "Business is booming, boss." "Don't make fun of me," I said, laughing. "Our net income this month is over $8,000. Diane gasped. "That's more than I ever made at the bank. A few months ago, I couldn't even afford a new blouse. Now, I had a business, independence, and, unexpectedly, a second chance at love." Arthur started stopping by more often, bringing little gifts, a potted orchid, an art book, a box of dark chocolates. One day, he handed me a formal invitation. "There's an art exhibit this weekend. Would you like to come?" "I don't know much about art," I said uncertainly. "That's all right," he smiled. "You'll have me as your guide." That Saturday, I put on my navy blue dress and pearl earrings. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. "You look beautiful," he said, so simply that it made me blush. The exhibit, The Splendor of Life, featured senior artists. We stopped before a watercolor called Twilight, showing two elderly figures sitting side by side as the sun melted into the horizon. "See?" Arthur said quietly. "That's us." My heart ached in the best way. I reached out and took his hand. Later, as we walked along the river at sunset, he told me stories from his art school days. I shared memories of my late husband, Thomas, and my years at the textile factory. The wind carried the scent of lilacs, and I thought, maybe it wasn't too late for beauty. Then he said, "My wife passed away 10 years ago. My son lives in Oregon and hardly calls. I thought the rest of my life would just drift by quietly. Until you." I rested my head against his shoulder. Life surprises us, doesn't it? Just then, my phone rang. It was Ryan. His voice was hoarse. "Mom, can we talk?" "Alone?" Arthur nodded. "Go. He's still your son." The next day, I met Ryan at a small cafe. He looked thinner, older somehow. "I quit my job," he said abruptly. Why? I asked, startled. He rubbed his forehead. Vanessa's gotten worse. She checks my phone, takes my pay, yells at Oliver, and she won't stop talking about you. Yesterday, I found she'd emptied our savings. Said she was protecting herself from me. He broke down then, the dam of pride collapsing. Mom, I was wrong. I was so wrong about everything. I wanted to reach out and comfort him, but I kept my voice calm. What will you do now? I want a divorce, he said, his voice trembling but firm. But I'm scared I'll lose Oliver. Talk to a good lawyer, I said, squeezing his hand. And remember, you have my support. Always. He looked up, eyes full of tears. You still love me. I always have, I said softly. But love doesn't mean excusing mistakes. It means helping you become better. He laid his head in my lap and sobbed, just like he used to as a little boy after scraping his knee. When he left, I stayed at the cafe long after the sun dipped low. My phone buzzed. A message from Arthur. How did it go? Need a ride? I texted back, it went well. I'll take a cab. But halfway home, I couldn't stop thinking about him. I told the driver his address instead. Arthur opened the door, surprised. Maggie? What's wrong? Nothing, I smiled. I just wanted to see you. He made tea, and we sat together on his small couch, surrounded by books and paintings. I told him everything. Then I looked at him and said, about what you said before. He started to interrupt, but I shook my head. You were right. Life's short. Too short to keep waiting. His eyes lit up with a joy so pure it made me laugh through my tears. That night, under the orange glow of dusk, two white-haired people found the courage to begin again. 6 months later, our craft shop moved into a larger space. We named it Golden Hour Studio, Arthur's idea. He even designed a logo, 2 hands holding a heart beneath a sunset. On opening day, our little store was full of friends, reporters, and well-wishers. To my surprise, Ryan showed up, with Oliver. The boy ran straight into my arms. Grandma. I missed you. Ryan smiled, looking both proud and humbled. The shop's beautiful, Mom. You've done so much. Daddy says you're a business boss now. Oliver chimed. When I grow up, I want to be like you. We all laughed, and I blinked back tears. Ryan's divorce had been finalized. To everyone's surprise, he'd been granted custody of Oliver. Later, Arthur and I sat on the balcony above the shop, watching Diane teach customers to weave coasters. It feels like a dream, I said softly. Arthur squeezed my hand. No dream could make you this strong. I smiled. 6 months ago, I was a lonely widow counting pennies. Now, I have a business, my son back, and love. He looked at me tenderly. You deserve every bit of it. Then he pulled a small box from his pocket. I was saving this for your birthday. Inside was a simple silver ring engraved with the letters A and M. I designed it myself, he said, nervous. Do you like it? I slipped it onto my finger. It fit perfectly. Does this mean? Yes, I said, smiling through tears. But no marriage certificate. Just you and me, companions for the rest of the road. He nodded. Whatever makes you happy. We kissed, and for once, I didn't feel old, I felt alive. That was how my new chapter began, at 62. Our business thrived. We hired 2 single mothers. Arthur still taught at the senior center, and on weekends, we took Oliver to museums and parks. Sometimes Vanessa called, angry and bitter, but I no longer carried that weight. Ryan said she'd started therapy. I wished her peace. One evening, As the sun dipped behind the trees, I asked Arthur, "Do you ever regret meeting me so late?" He paused, then smiled. "No. Meeting you now means I finally know how to love someone right." I leaned against him, watching the golden sky fade into soft pink. Love had come late, but maybe that's why it burns so beautifully. Life, after all, isn't about when you start, it's about never giving up on starting again.